Welcome back once again, crew, to our educational series on sailing the BVIs. Today we're going to talk about what makes a sailboat work and why it actually sucks. And I think you'll be kind of surprised for those of you who don't already know. In the early days of sailing, this was the type of boat that was used. The biggest disadvantage of this type of boat are those big, long, square sails. They pretty much had to go in the direction that the wind was blowing. They didn't have a whole lot of versatility. Today's modern sailboats can pretty much sail any direction they need to. They're very versatile, very fast, and much, much lighter. And as you can see here, they cut through the water nicely. And it's all because of this guy right here. You may have never heard of Johann Bernoulli, but you've definitely benefited from his mathematical genius. Johann was able to prove that if you can bend air around an object, it creates negative air pressure and therefore creates a lift, and that's something we use every day. Here's the formula if you want to write it down. And let me straighten that up for you. So now you can understand it, I'm sure. You have benefited from Johann's theorem if you've ever ridden on one of these. I'm sure most of you know or are aware that an airplane wing is not flat. It actually has a curve to it. And let me explain that. The top part of the wing is shaped so the air has to increase its speed as it goes across the top. What this does is it creates a negative air pressure zone above the wing and a positive air pressure underneath. The slower air creates lift, and that's how planes fly. What you're trying to figure out now is how does this apply to a boat? Well, let me explain that to you. So a boat's sail is nothing more than a wing on its side, and that negative air pressure is created as the air flows over the bent sail. And therefore, it's not really being blown, it's being sucked through the water. Okay, once you stop giggling, you can look at this picture here and you can see that the area between the two sails creates that negative and positive airflow, and that's what gives the energy for the sailboat to actually move. Unlike the old wooden sailboats we saw in the first clip, today's modern sailboat can sail pretty much in any direction except into the no-go zone. That is directly into the wind. No sailboat can actually sail directly into the wind, but today's newer boats can sail pretty darn close. What you have to remember is these sails are 50 to 60 feet in the air, and with that much cloth out there, they're catching a lot of wind, creating a lot of pressure. Under that pressure, on a monohull sailboat, there is a large piece of the boat underneath the water called a keel, and that contains a tremendous amount of weight that counteracts any kind of force that's being put on the sails and keeps the boat from tipping over. Today's catamarans have very shallow keels, and they really rely on the width of the boat to counteract the force on the sails to keep them from tipping over. However, it is possible for an overzealous captain in a race to try to get as much wind as he can and flip his catamaran. Unlike a sailboat, a catamaran will not turn itself back over. When it goes turtle, it stays turtle. Most catamarans are designed to have escape hatches, so if they do tip over, you can get out of the boat without being trapped inside. Now, how all this ties together is what we're going to discuss next. First thing you're going to need when you're sailing is a sail. That will be the first thing we do when we get ready to go after we motor out of the marina, is we're going to hoist the main sail. This takes a little bit of effort and a little bit of coordination, especially with a sail that's 60 feet in the air. They get a little heavy at the very end. But fortunately, we're equipped with a very nice modern boat. It has a whole lot of conveniences to make this easy. First thing in hoisting the main sail is we're going to turn the boat into the wind so that the sail is luffing. This is what you can see in this picture. You can see how wavy it is and loose and flabby. That is a luffing sail. This is a self-tilling winch. It is used to hoist the sails and also to trim the sails. This is not a self-tilling winch, although it is a winch. You have to actually manually pull the line back as you crank the handle. A little more difficult to use. Next few pictures are of winch handles. You need to have these pretty handy anytime you're working on the winch, and you really don't want to put them over the side of the boat. As you can see here, they lock into place by turning a little knob on the top there. Although we will have to do what they call grinding on our winches, we won't have to do as much because of this little contraption here. This is an electric winch. This winch works just like a manual winch, except that it is electric, and you just push two buttons to make it go fast or slow to hoist your sails. These are known as spin locks. When the lines run through those little holes, and when you clamp them down, it holds the line in place once you have the sail trimmed the way you want it. As you can see in this picture, this is a good example of how the winches and the spin locks work together. These are the actual winches that are on the Endless Summer, and this will be kind of how we'll be using them. Someone will be driving the boat, someone will be working the winches. In this video, you can see how the winch will work. You put the handle in, make sure it's locked down, and you give it a little turn, and as you can see, that top line is caught in a little vise type operation, and it pulls the line free as you turn it around. Although they don't show it here, today's winches actually have two speeds, a high speed and a low speed, depending on which way you're cranking it. The drum still turns the same direction, but it's a different gear ratio. So when the lines get tight, you can go the other direction and give yourself a break. This is how the sail should look going up using the winch, whether it's electric or manual. And it is a long way up there, so be prepared. This is a mainsail that's fully hoisted and starting to catch the wind. These are called lazy jacks. Most boats nowadays have them, and what it does is it helps to stack the sail when you're reducing your sail or bringing it down. As you can see on Chip Ahoy here, these are the lazy jacks that they've installed on their boat. Most sails that are installed on a boat with a traditional mast have these inserts called battens. Battens are fiberglass stiffeners that go in those little pockets. You can see she's inserting them in there. This only happens when the sail is brand new or going up for the very first time. You can see the battens are where the arrows are at. These are the lazy jacks that will be on the Endless Summer. Okay, we've been talking about the mainsail, but there's actually another sail on most boats, and sometimes there's a third one. This is called the jib, or the genoa. It's the front sail of the boat, and this one's on a rolling furler, just like ours. This diagram illustrates how the furling sail works. You've got two sheets tied to the bottom of the sail that pull it out, and you've got another line that retrieves the sail when you're ready to roll it back up. On our boat, Endless Summer, these are the two sheets that deploy the head sail. Okay, this is the main component to the rolling furler. You can see the line right here. That's used to retrieve the sail, and it's very important that this does not get tangled. Here's a closer look at the jib sheets. I should have mentioned this earlier. There are no ropes on a boat. There are sheets and lines and halyards. No ropes. Unlike the mainsail, on the jib we want a little wind into the sail to help deploy it as you pull the jib sheets. Here's a close look at the jib sheets. You can see the one line is very taut. That is the working sheet. The other one is called the lazy sheet. It has no tension on it at all. The line on the right is to retrieve the sail when we're done for the day. You pull on that line, it rotates that drum, and the sail rolls up. When we deploy it, we have to keep a little bit of tension on that line, otherwise it will tangle coming out. Here you see the two main sheets for the jib on the Endless Summer, and you can barely see the retrieval line to the right. This is what it should look like once both sails are deployed. Notice the rolling furler up front, and more importantly the line that is wrapped around on the inside. As that sail comes out, that line goes in, and that's how we pull the sail back in at the end of the day. Once all the sails are deployed, then all we have left to do is trim the sails. That's where we get them to perform at their peak level. Trimming the sails means we're moving the sheets in and out to give the sails their maximum performance, and that gives us maximum speed. Depending on which way the wind is blowing from, that determines our sail configuration and how we will trim them. This diagram explains the points of sail. You can see which way the wind is blowing, and depending on which direction you want to go, that's how your sails would be set up. These little sperm-looking things are called telltales. They indicate the flow of the air going across the sail. There will be one of these telltales on each side of the sail, so you know what the air is doing on the inside and the outside of the sail. By looking at the telltales, you can tell whether the sail is trimmed to its optimum performance. In this picture, both telltales are flying the same way, which means the airflow is the same on both sides, which is what you're looking for. In this photo, you can see the telltales on the left are going different directions. That is considered what we call confused telltales. The telltales on the right are what we're looking for. They're both basically going the same direction. The sail is now trimmed correctly. As we sail, we'll be changing the position of the sails, and there are two basic moves. They're called jibing and tacking. The main difference between jibing and tacking is when you jibe, you're taking the rear of the boat through the wind. With tacking, you're taking the bow of the boat through the wind, and these pictures will demonstrate exactly what is said and the maneuver itself. Both jibing and tacking are crew events, and it will take more than one person to make this happen generally. Also, the voice commands are extremely important so everybody knows what's going on and nobody gets hurt. When we have to tack, generally we're going in a point of sail where we're going into the wind. So we have to move back and forth in a zigzag pattern to go upwind. This is somewhat time consuming, and what would normally take you maybe 30 minutes will take you an hour and a half to 2 hours. The wind direction will be about 45 degrees to the angle of the boat, and then when we turn, we're turning 90 degrees. So 2 45s make a 90. Jibing is very similar to a tack, except that the wind is behind the boat, and unfortunately it's one of the more dangerous things you can do. Occasionally you'll get what they call an accidental jibe. If you don't keep the boat in the right direction, that boom will swing over unexpectedly. And if you're not prepared for it, they call it a boom for a reason. Once again, this is endless summer, and you can see the distance between the lounge chairs and that boom. If you were to be sitting up or standing up and there's an accidental jibe, you're going to get tossed overboard, or you're going to be rushed to the emergency room. Let's try to avoid that at all costs if we can, and pay attention when we're up there. Sometimes when we're sailing, the wind will change in velocity, and we have to do what they call reefing the sails. And there's reef points in there, and all that is reducing the amount of square footage the sail is exposed to the wind. And that helps us stabilize the boat and slow it down a little bit so it's not so turbulent. The arrows indicate the different reef points, and we'll be lowering the sail to achieve those and get to those points. So those are the basic things you need to know about the sails. When we get done, they should look like this, and we'll be scooting along pretty quickly in a catamaran. Okay, let's talk about safety and some of the equipment and systems that are on the boat. This is an electrical panel that you're going to find on every boat. It's mainly a circuit breaker for every piece of equipment that needs electricity, but unlike your home circuit breaker, this has got 12 volt and 120 volt or shore power. If something's not working, you want to check this panel first. This is the main circuit panel on Endless Summer. This panel, you'll have the generator start button, which is the controls on the bottom, and then on top is really the power we're using and how we're generating it, either off of shore power or off of batteries. Okay, the kitchen on the boat is known as a galley, and these are some of the items that are in it. This is the freezer. You can see it's not huge, but it'll be enough for what we need. This is 2 of the 3 refrigerators we have on board the boat, and we have the luxury of having a dishwasher on this boat, which is very unusual for a sailboat, but it will come in handy. I kind of wish we had an ice maker, though. Okay, the toilet on a sailboat or any boat is called a head. This is one of the most frustrating things that can happen on a boat, and it's not like your toilet at home. To prevent the head from being clogged, a lot of people will take the toilet paper that's used and put it in a trash bag next to the toilet. Captain P doesn't play that game. We use the toilet as it's intended, but there's a requirement that you do not use a tremendous amount of toilet paper. If you need to use more than normal, you need to do it more than once. All the toilets, and there's 6 of them I believe, on Endless Summer are all electric, which means they have a little switch on them when you are done doing your business to get rid of your business. Although this is not the switches that are on Endless Summer, they will look similar to these, and they will function the same way. The switch on the right fills the bowl up and also evacuates it, and the one on the left simply evacuates it and refills the bowl. It sounds silly, but we will have a training session on this once we're on the boat. Okay, the next area on the boat is the galley, also known as the kitchen at home. This is where you're going to find most of the activity going on. You see we've got a stove, a sink, an oven. So where the dishwasher is, that little round circle in the front, I believe, is for the trash. There's a microwave in that cabinet on the back left. The freezer and the 2 refrigerators that are inside are on your right. Okay, the living room on a boat is called the salon, not the saloon. This is where everyone's going to gather. You can have meals in here, relax, read. In some boats there's a television in this area. The stereo is located in here, and it's basically just a lounge area. As nice as these 2 areas, the galley and the salon are, they are full of flammables, and that brings us to the #1 danger on any kind of boat, and that danger is fire. On a boat, unlike your home, you can't leave. You've got to put the fire out or you're going to be in the water. Being in a marina has its advantages and it's convenient. However, this can be the result of boats close together. The smaller boat more than likely started this fire since it's gas operated and it quickly spread to the other boats. Somebody's insurance is going to go way up. One of the Coast Guard requirements is to have a fire blanket on board in case there is a galley fire. This is the fire blanket on Endless Summer. It's located just to the left of the stove. Personally, I think it's in a bad location, but at least it's conveniently located. Throughout the boat, you will find these little apparatuses, and I think you're familiar with them. They're fire extinguishers, but these are made for all types of fire. There should be one in the galley, in the salon, in your berths, everywhere on the boat, really. Our water is supplied out of the tanks that are on the boat. They're full of water, and that's what we use for dishes, bathing, and drinking. It's very important that we don't waste this water, although we do have a water maker, unlike a lot of boats. Water in the BVIs is expensive if we had to buy it. So what I'd like for everyone to do is try to be cognizant of how much water they're using at any one time. You may have heard the term Navy shower. Using the shower consumes probably more water than any one other activity on the boat. Typically, the idea is to get yourself wet, turn the water off, lather up, or rinse yourself off. And you may have to do this several times, but that will conserve some of the water on the boat. Again, it's not a huge issue if you just take a regular shower because we do have the water maker. This is a typical setup for most heads with the shower. Not a lot of room, but plenty of room for everybody on board. And it is nice to have a hot shower at the end of the day, clean up and get the salt off. Personally, Captain P likes to shower on the back deck. It's a lot more room, it's comfortable, it is al fresco, and it's a nice way to get all the salt off. There is a freshwater shower on the back of Endless Summer for this reason. Depending on our neighbors, depends on how I'll be dressed. Okay, that pretty much covers what I needed to cover in this particular video and why sailing sucks, and I think you have a pretty good idea of what sailing's about at this point. Next thing we need to do is jump on that big old plane and head down to the BVIs, and I will see you guys there in a couple of days. I hope you've enjoyed these videos. Thanks.